All right, let's jump right into this explainer. The night the Earth went silent. Now, to really grasp this ancient history, we've got to completely leave our current reality behind. Seriously, forget the world outside your window right now. We're dialing the clock way, way back to a time long before our history books even thought about beginning. Picture this. Long before Prophet Adam ever took his first breath, there were absolutely no skyscrapers, no buzzing city streets, not even the distant hum of an airplane. Just nature. But not exactly as we know it. Imagine an Earth literally glowing with the vibrant, raw energy of fire and light. We're talking magnificent, sprawling cities carved directly into the heart of ancient, towering mountains. It wasn't just some empty rock floating in space. It was a deeply alive, thriving world. It was just totally devoid of human life. So to understand why this super vibrant world eventually went silent, we first have to look at who was actually running the show, the rulers. They were known as the Jinn. Now, these beings were forged from a smokeless, weightless fire, and they possessed phenomenal, mind-bending powers. I mean, things we can barely wrap our modern heads around, like the ability to just fly across the globe or completely vanish in an absolute instant. They were, without a doubt, the apex inhabitants of this pre-human Earth. And here's the thing you've got to remember. These beings weren't just wandering, mindless spirits. Not at all. They built highly complex, structured civilizations that thrived for absolute ages. They lived for centuries, man. They had their own kings, really diverse cultures, and they spoke multiple languages. They existed and governed in dimensions that are just entirely unseen to us today. We're talking about a highly sophisticated global society. But well, as is often the case with immense power and centuries of totally unchecked rule, a dark shift occurred. This terrifying societal decay was known as fasad. Fasad essentially translates to a deep systemic corruption. It was this widespread, massive shift toward pure arrogance and the sheer brutal abuse of their extraordinary gifts. Just imagine a world where the Earth, which, by the way, was originally intended to be a pristine sanctuary of pure worship, was instead transformed into this chaotic, bloody marketplace. Magic actually became a common commodity. It was auctioned off in hidden rooms to the highest bidder. Powerful Jinn tribes violently enslaved the weaker ones. Driven entirely by greed and unchecked ego, they literally turned this magnificent planet into a horrifying battlefield. But right in the middle of this terrifying decay, one singular Jinn stood completely apart. His name was Azazeel. Now, Azazeel was not an angel. He had free will just like the rest of his kind. But he actually used that free will to choose a wildly different path. While everyone else was descending into madness, he dedicated his days and nights to intense, continuous piety and prayer. And because of this unmatched devotion, we're talking endless nights of profound prayer, the angels themselves actually started to notice Azazeel. His spiritual discipline was so staggering that he was eventually elevated right out of that chaotic, blood-soaked earth. He was invited up to live among the angels in the celestial heights of the heavens, completely leaving the corruption of his species far below. Actually, his rise didn't even stop there. Get this. He was so revered, so incredibly pious, that he transcended his origins to a shocking degree. He actually became a teacher to the angels themselves. Picture that for a second. A being born of fire from an utterly corrupted planet, now standing up in the highest heavens, giving angels lessons on the deep recognition of the divine. It is just a breathtaking ascent. Meanwhile, back on Earth, the situation had deteriorated from bad to just straight up apocalyptic. The fasad, that corruption we talked about, it reached such terrifying heights that the angels looking down from the heavens became deeply, deeply disturbed. They actually worriedly asked Allah that the horrific violence and the endless spilling of blood below would ever cease. The earth was quite literally crying out for relief. So this all builds to an incredibly epic climax. We go from millennia of prosperous Jinn rule straight down into centuries of bloody arrogance, which leads right up to a singular day when the heavenly command finally intervenes. And this intervention, it triggers a catastrophic cosmic war, essentially resetting the clock entirely to a year zero. When that heavenly command finally came down, it was awe-inspiring. An immense army of angels, beings made of pure, piercing light, descended to cleanse the corrupted world. And who do you think was leading this majestic army of light against the chaotic forces of fire? None other than Azazeel himself. He returned to his home planet not as a regular citizen, but as a divine conqueror.
This clash was a terrifyingly destructive cosmic war. This definitely wasn't some quiet, peaceful intervention. Mountains literally crumbled into dust. The oceans boiled from the sheer intensity of the conflict. And right at the forefront, Azazeel fought with incredible ferocity. He was driven by this intense desire to prove that he was the absolute most loyal servant of all. Ultimately, the corrupt Jinn forces were completely routed, and they were banished to the deepest oceans and the most remote, hidden islands.
Then, after this total sweep of the corrupt forces, the dust finally settled. A heavy, profound silence fell over the entire world. The roaring fires, the clashing armies, the centuries of chaos, all of it just stopped. This was the night the Earth went silent. It left behind a pristine, totally empty, and thoroughly cleansed planet, just quietly waiting for a brand new beginning.
But beneath this quiet surface lay a really dangerous hidden threat. See, while the physical Earth was finally cleansed and peaceful, an arrogant fire was quietly erupting inside the victorious Azazeel. He stood on the quiet Earth as a victor, sure, but he had swallowed a hidden poison. And that poison was pride.
Azazeel had slowly begun to view his own journey not as the grace of a humble servant, but as the achievement of a masterpiece. He genuinely believed he was the absolute pinnacle of creation. And this fatal, hidden flaw, it was immediately exposed when a divine announcement echoed through the heavens. A new Khalifa, a new successor, named Adam, was going to be created for the earth.
And here is where the ego absolutely shatters. Think about it. Having seen the highest tiers of heaven, having led the greatest cosmic war in history, and being made of brilliant, smokeless fire himself, Azazeel's burning ego simply could not handle the next command. He was commanded to bow down to this new creation, a creature made from something as terribly humble as dry, wringing mud and clay.
In that definitive moment, Azazeel uttered the words that would completely seal his fate. He said, "I am better than him." Just like that, thousands upon thousands of years of unparalleled prayer, deep devotion, and stellar leadership entirely vanished. Gone. All erased in a single tragic moment of unchecked pride. His ego simply would not allow him to submit.
In an absolute instant, the great hero of our story, the actual teacher of angels, fell completely from divine grace. He was stripped of his celestial standing and transformed into our greatest historical enemy. He became the rejected figure famously known as Iblis. Honestly, it is one of the most stunning and sudden downfalls recorded in all of theological history.
The tragic lesson hidden inside this epic explainer is incredibly profound for all of us. True spiritual devotion, I don't care how intense or how long-lasting it is entirely meaningless if it serves only to inflate your own ego. Piety without humility isn't enlightenment. It's just a mask. It's a trap. So as we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with this final, very personal question to chew on. Because while the cosmic war of the Jinn is ancient history, unchecked pride is a very real battle that every single one of us still fights today. So how do you stay humble in your own life and your own spiritual journey? Keep that in mind as you navigate your own path, and never, ever forget the night the earth went silent.